confidence and harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zeimet.
Welcome to the Beverly Zeimet Show, where being the best you that you can be is just getting easier. My guest today is Danna Lewis, and she's calling in from San Francisco, California, right? So welcome, Danna. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Hi, Beverly. Thank you so much. Hello to everyone. If you're watching it live, if you're watching it at some other time, good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Yeah, wherever it is on the planet you are, because I'll tell you, it's been so much fun doing this show because I've had guests on from the UK, Australia, South Africa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Canada.
That's awesome.
And even little places like Missoula, Montana, right?
Oh, how cool.
North Dakota, Nebraska. So it's an array of spiritual people, of entrepreneurs, of people that are just really have this beautiful story that needs to get out, and helping every one of us to understand how we are so connected in what's going on around us and in the world. And we look at, how life changes. Change can be a difficult thing for most people because they don't like it, because we like to stay in that little, box that we know, and it's predictable and all that kind of stuff, right? And then all of a sudden, bam, here we are.
Big
Life,
bam, yeah.
Yes, everything changed. And it's not just in one area or nothing, it's globally. So we have that global impact, not just an aerial impact, right? And a local. So it really changes and shifts that energy. So let's talk a little bit about those energies, how it's impacted your life. And you had mentioned you have pets. We saw the little thing walk behind you.
Did you see her? Did you? Ziva had to make her guest appearance. She may make quite a few.
Well, that's quite all right. How does that impact animals, so you're aware of that?
Yeah.
And the stress. Are they stressed out? I mean, we look at the stress of everyone. So capitalize on that. Just share your
that's a great place to start. Of course, we'll start with you, Zizi. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here, and I will be sipping on some coffee because it's still early for me in San Francisco, and my schedule's been kind of wacky with all of this, right? As I think a lot of people's are, like just going with the flow there of like, okay, I need more rest. I'm going to sleep later. I'm going to go sleep early. Whatever my body needs is kind of what I'm doing these days. But I noticed with Ziva, and she just turned 1, and how many people are empathic and highly sensitive, and everyone's probably right? Exactly. So I've noticed, I've had her, she's a year. So I got her in June. So I've had her like 8-9 months. And, I started noticing earlier that she shows me my energy, right? Like if she's off the rails or if she's calm, like I just started noticing and pinging off of that, like, oh, she's reflecting back to me kind of what's going on around in the world and also what's going on with me. So I use that, as a meter, as a measure, temperature check. So, and it just helps me actually acknowledge my own awareness more. So the past few days, she's just been kind of off the rails. Like all morning, she's just going from one activity to the other, jumping around, and she likes heights. So she's jumping on things and she's been chewing. She's always been kind of a chewer at times. I think from getting her going from baby teeth to adult teeth, which I didn't know cats do that. But,
well, and I guess they do. I mean,
yeah, they
like
do.
Right?
She lost a baby tooth in my hand at one point. And I think she might have been taken from her mama too young. So she has that. But I've noticed like she's just so aware of energy. It's like me, like I tend to like fidget or pick at my fingers. And I've been doing that too. And she's been looking for things to chew on. I'm like, okay. So, how many people are noticing that? And are your pets doing things that are just a little bit different or odd? Or maybe you're doing things that are a little bit different or odd. And I think number one is like, let's just be aware of it, right? Like be aware, go, oh, okay, something's different. what is this, right? This is where you go into question, which comes from my background with quantum physics and consciousness. It's like, okay, so what is this? And don't make it wrong, right? Like, I'm like, oh, I'm biting my nails or chewing on my fingers, or the cat or the dog is chewing on things and or shredding things. Instead of making any of it wrong, like really use it for the information that it is. So what is it? What can I do with it? So with Kitty, this, you guys are gonna laugh, but she has a dog. It's a dog bone. It's a teething bone for a puppy. Someone told me, about this. So, right? So I'm like, okay, so I see you're trying to put her mouth on something else. I'm like putting that in her mouth. She has kitty grass too that she grazes on in the apartment. So it's kind of like, what else can we do with it? And for me, the fidgeting, I'm just meditating more. I'm moving my body more. I live in an apartment, so while I'm getting out for walks about once a day, right, I still go outside. But I already had a mini trampoline in the apartment and an exercise bike. But if you don't have any of that, you can still move. I mean, YouTube, every channel, especially YouTube, dance and yoga and Pilates, and lots of teachers, maybe your yoga teacher, like they're doing online classes. So now's the time to take advantage of all that. And sometimes you just got to move your body and like move the energy,
Right.
and don't have a judgment about what it is or when it's coming up. The other night I was bouncing on the mini trampoline for a good like hour dancing. It was like 9 o'clock at night, which normally be like, hey, it's time to settle down and da, da, but I just
Exactly.
I had to move the energy. So I'm like, okay, let's not have a point of view about this. Just take care of it however you can and start to play with it and use those tools and ask the questions like, what is this? What can I do with it? Can I change it? Right? And that's when you start pulling in these different things that we were just talking about to change it, and then like how, and then just try some things. Everything's new right now.
Oh,
we're in
everything.
uncharted territory.
Oh my gosh, uncharted territory. That's element. I mean, oh my God, it is unchanneled and everything else, and it's just like, what are you gonna do? But I think what you said is really kind of interesting because, again, being aware of what the animals are doing, as to does that reflect on you? But people who have families at home, a spouse or kids, especially kids, right? Is how are they responding? To you? What are your actions and how are they responding? Because kids will do that. Doesn't matter what age they are. Spouses will do that. So how is everyone in your household responding to everyone else? And so
that's brilliant.
Yeah, so if there's chaos, maybe everybody needs to sit down here for a moment and say, let's take a deep breath. What is the chaos that is happening in our house, and how can we bring that balance together, right? Rather than saying, oh my God, I'm going to kill you guys if you don't settle down, right?
Yeah, or saying like and so I don't have kids, and so thank you for bringing that up because that's such an important part. So I'm basing it right on this current experience where I'm home with Ziva Kitty, and so grateful for her, like beyond to have her interaction and play and entertainment and all that. So my one of my brothers has kids that are young. They're 4.5 and 6.5. And so he works, they'll be home anyway, but he works from home. My sister-in-law's homeschooling, and these kids already have bundles and bundles of energy. Right. And so now it's like, oh my God, but they're taking them for nature walks every day. I think yesterday they went on a 6-mile bike ride. So I know, I was impressed with that. I'm like, how'd you just far for little kids? But my brother, so they're doing that because they're aware of that. And I've also seen in people where you look at it and you go, oh, what's wrong with you? So I just implore everyone to like, do your best to like bite your tongue instead of the what's wrong. It's like, okay, what's right about this? What information,
can we do?
Like you were saying, what information is this?
Yeah, because it's really gonna tell everything about that other person that you're with, because you're not used to spending that much time, and then in a confined area, totally out of realm from what the norm is, from the habits, from what you're used to doing every single day. There's so many changes that are going on. You tapped on something here when you said your brother took the kids out on a bicycle ride. I'm going to tell you this little story.
With gloves and helmets and the social distancing, all of that.
Yeah, there you go. I'm not a fan of bicycle riding. It's like okay, it's just like I mean I'm healthy. I have no problem with my knees or anything, but I just don't like the way it makes my legs feel regardless. It's like okay. I mean as a kid I went all over. So now I'm an adult and my daughter is I think she was around 5 or 6. And she was quite the little entrepreneur. So there was this bike ride, you went out, every mile people would give you $1 or something like this, right? So for some kind of charity thing, I don't even remember exactly what it was. She went out and she got all this money. I mean, it was a lot, right? So that she could collect it after she rode, and we were going 12 miles.
Wow.
12 miles. Yeah.
That's a hike.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, oh my God, she's 5 and she's on this little bike, just a regular little bicycle, you know what I'm saying? No speed bike or anything.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm thinking, okay, so when this whole little marathon thing started, it's like, well, if she peters out, because we had trucks following us and whatever to pick up whoever petered out. So I figured, okay. So, I'll pick up the slack and do the miles for her. The little fart went all the way.
That's impressive.
All the way.
It really is. I don't know if I would do 12 miles right now.
And I had to go 12 miles, right? I'm like, are you kidding me? So I get off and it's like my leg is going, whoa, and she's
I know that
all over
wobbly
the place.
feeling. Yeah.
It's like, never again.
Kids, yeah.
When she's got her mindset to do that. So again, when we think about that, right, where our priorities are, and whatever that is, whatever that purpose is that you're focused on. So at 5 or 6, whatever it was, she had that, knowing that these people were going to be paying her this money to do this. And so she did it, and she never complained once. She just kept right on going. I was totally amazed. And
that is amazing.
She's still that way. Right?
Yeah, right?
And it's like, wow. So again, it's building that foundation. And we have that opportunity now because we're spending more time with, the family, right? So get to know your kids because you have so much time with them now. Get to really know them at whatever age it is that they are, because you will never get this time back again. And it can change your world, but most importantly, it's going to change their world. And you had mentioned too, Danna, about stress.
Yeah.
Right? And how you work with people with stress as a coach and whatever. What would be some of the tips that you could share with our audience, around this stress? Because our theme is all about being that best you, right?
Yeah.
And when you're stressed out, you're not really being that best you, right? So how can you, share with the audience as to what can they do to start reeling it in to balance out that stress?
And we really are just in uncharted territories. And like you're saying, it actually is a really special time. And I love that you said that word because, there's a lot of contraction and negative, things that are lowering the vibration going on. And so everyone I've been talking to is like, okay, how do we raise the vibration? And again, have the kindness for yourself when you fall off that wagon, right? And you get scared or anxious or stressed. Like we all have it. It's been a roller coaster, and I have those moments too. And it's like having your tools. And so being at home, this is one of the things that at first I was like, oh, this is so great for people. Like it's this big reset and the earth is doing its magic and is like taking over. And for people, I'm like, it's so amazing, especially the first week and a half, people were like cooking and baking and playing family games and like everyone just went into it with all that gusto that people do because they're so used to working. They're like, oh, a project, right? And then I was like, oh, this is gonna be really interesting after a little while. And like you're saying, everyone's just, you're stuck with these people that are your family that you love, but it's like, do you like them? And all the little things start coming up at some point. So that's what I've been wondering about. I'm like, thinking about both my brothers, and they're married and there's kids at home and friends and stuff. And I'm like, oh gosh, like this is going to bring stuff up for people.
Oh,
like
my gosh.
all the old, right? Like all the stuff is going to come up. And so if there's bickering or arguing, or if that was already in existence before, it could just be exasperated. So
yeah, that big word,
exasperated. It's like I said, it's early here. You got to be a team. Like you really, to me, this is
Yeah.
a time, like if you're at home alone with kids and you're a single parent, like how can you, there's several things, like how can you get some buy-in from your kids to be able to have some alone time? Like everyone requires that. No matter where you are in the scale of introvert to extrovert, it's like I feel like most
Right.
people need like a few something, some degree of self-care
Separation.
and alone time and separation. Yeah, isolation. And so, there was a Kelly Clarkson, the singer, and she has her own talk show. She was in her bathroom in the cabin in Montana going, this is my alone time. So you have to be able to negotiate that. And so even if you're single at home with kids, and I feel for you guys, but how can you enlist other people like outside of the home to contribute to you? So there, I know a lot of people. There's an organization. I know the founder, kindsome.org. They're doing like babysitting virtually where they'll have like dance parties and story time and things where you can put your kids, we got to do it right now in front of the screen, but they're doing
Right.
activities, right? So you kind of have a little virtual babysitter. Or with some friends of mine in Dallas, their daughter, London, is 10. And so I'm doing reading with her almost every day. So I'll get on Zoom with her for an hour. And so, my friend and her husband or whatever, they're doing their thing. But so now I have time with her. It's been great for me too, because I feel like I'm contributing to them, but it gives them
Well, it creates a
a break
bonding.
from,
It
right.
creates a bond with you. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it gives them a break from homeschooling is hard. It's
Right.
so hard. I mean, it's not what our professions are unless you're a teacher. So if you're single, there's options. And really just, I know we get stuck in the like, there's no options or, we all have those moments and just,
Right.
okay, when you're not in that moment, when you're in a calmer moment, like that's when you make a plan. It's
Right.
hard to do it when you're down the
Yeah,
rabbit
when
hole.
you're down the rabbit hole. Good way to
Right.
put it. That stress
So
level. So
adult timeout. So even if it's 8 minutes, and I'm saying 8 minutes because I've been doing a daily guided meditation. It's super short. They've been averaging 8 minutes weekdays at 1 o'clock, one o'clock Pacific time on my Facebook business channel, just because in 8 minutes we can go through a guided meditation, get some breaths in, get recentered, kind of ground to Gaia. Like we can do all that pretty quickly. And so I've been hashtagging that adult timeout because I'm like, okay, you guys can
I
do
like
this.
that
Like
adult
do
timeout.
something, right? Like do something with the kids or get your spouse to watch them. So that's been going on. And then if you have a partner, what plan can you guys come up with?
Right.
Like really take some moments and be like, okay, I'm homeschooling, you're working or whatever, we're going to switch. Or in the case, like I said, with my brother and sister-in-law, she's doing, I don't know, probably 90% of that. And he's working from home. And then, he'll take the kids out on some days for, like I said yesterday, 6 mile bike ride. So she can have a break.
Right.
So you got to work together. You
It
got to work
is.
together. This is really the
It is.
time
It's
to
a
pull
team.
together as a family and
Yeah.
a husband and wife. Oops.
Yeah.
Sorry, the cat's knocking over the lamp. See, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned, being that team, and we are a team,
Yeah.
whether you're in business or whatever, but as a family
Mhm.
unit, working together in
Yes.
that team spirit is really a
Yeah.
necessity. And to have that time, and I like what you brought up, doing that virtual babysitter. I had a guest on the other day, and her daughter started up, she goes, Mom, we know all these people that have kids, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, can I do this? And she, well, sure you can, right? So she started reaching out to people
Good.
that she knew. And I mean, she was like, I think 12, 14, something like that, right? And so now what she does is she's started her own little business as a virtual babysitter.
Good for
Oh, yeah.
her.
So she's
Kids
charging
are
this
so
way.
willing to be creative and like
Yeah.
go outside of the norm.
Yeah, and being still a kid herself, and knowing these different things, so she'll play games with them. So they're sitting in front of the computer, right? She's playing games with them. She'll do reading. She'll do how to
That's
be a
awesome.
quiet time. How to all these little things that she's teaching. And it's interesting because Mom was saying to watch her daughter do this. It's like, wow, she was really paying attention when we were you know because she's following how she was taught. And,
Yeah.
that's rewarding for a parent to be able to see that and go out there in that field and be that little entrepreneur and really start incorporating and utilizing what she has been taught. Because sometimes you really don't know, did they get the message? Right?
Yeah.
And
What
to
a
be able,
great reflection back.
oh my gosh, she said that was so heartwarming. And it would be.
Yeah.
So we're talking about virtual. I'm working with a partner, and what we're doing is actual virtual reality. It's not the Zoom virtuals, it's not the Skype, it's
Oh,
not that.
yeah.
So actually going on that platform. Now,
Yep. I've heard about that.
so the platform we're using doesn't need the glasses, which is really kind of cool. But everyone can come into that platform, and they have their little avatar.
Cool.
So this is another great way to take kids into something that's going to keep them more
Yeah.
engrossed in it and focused, but doing it in a way that's teaching and training. So we have classroom
Yes.
setups in there. We've had teachers come and say, okay, how can we incorporate that with our kids, with our students, to keep them focused, because you're going to be able to see them in the virtual reality with their little avatar, and then they can interact in the classroom. So it's actually classroom space. But what we're also doing for businesses is, I'm sure you're familiar with networking groups like chambers and lead groups and BNIs, and
Mm-hmm.
right, like that. So we are starting a virtual networking group
Very
where
cool. Yeah.
it goes out on a global platform. So you're not locked into just where you are, because most of us, with online businesses, can go anywhere in the world, right? So the coaching and stuff that you do, it's not just around San Francisco or
Right.
California or West
Can
Coast.
be
You can
anywhere.
take it anywhere you want. So with this global networking and being able to do it in a professional manner, so we're looking for 12 super leaders who want to start bringing in, and then and have blah, weekly meetings, right? And and there's going to be that 20 different chambers, right? Different groups that you can actually cross lines, because you can go into the other
Nice.
groups, right? We're
Yeah.
not going to limit, like, oh well, we can only have one life coach and we can only have one financial coach, end of story. It's not that way. It's open to everyone, regardless of what your business is, whether it's a brick and mortar, so when you move out of this, but what can you do now, to
Mm-hmm.
interact, right? So it just really opens up the doors, but doing it on that level. um, we've got rooms in there where you can actually do a talk. So
Oh,
let's just say
nice.
you want to rent out the auditorium, right? And you've got 50
Very
people that
cool.
you want to talk with, or do a workshop, right? That platform is available. And this is what I was looking for before this world changed the way it was to be able to do something virtually like that, to take my courses online, but to have it in a virtual setting where it's like that person is right next to the other person. I had no clue how I was going to do that, none whatsoever. About a year and a half ago, I started planning all of this. How can I reach that point, right? Because when you look at it from that perspective, you know you've got a lot of expenses going out if you have to travel. You've got hotel space if it's not in the city that you are, and then you've
Mm-hmm.
got eating out. But if people don't have that extra income, that can be a lot. So if you're paying for a $2,000 weekend, that's a 3-day course or 4-day course, whatever it is. You've got to add all these other expenses on. Now this
Right.
$2,000 course ends up to be twice that much, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
and then there's other people that aren't able to go, maybe because they can't travel, because their body functions don't quite work that way. They may have a handicap that they can't do that.
Yeah.
you know but now it can open up that world to be able to be a part of that. Some people are afraid to go out. They're afraid to be judged, or they have a phobia being around a group of people. There's so many reasons why a lot of us aren't out there doing workshops, but they want that information, but their anxieties or fear hold them back, right? So being in that virtual setting, now it doesn't matter who it is. You have your little avatar. People can
Right.
drop down any barriers that they have and be able to
So
be there and
interesting.
focus 100%. And so that's kind of what we're looking to get out there, and it's moving fast. The interest is crazy. So anybody out there listening here, if you want to hit that virtual world and do something like that, because that's the world we're in, that's the world we're going to. Facebook is going to turn their virtual reality, platform out, I think in May or June.
Wow.
So it is the sign of the times.
Yeah.
Be a pioneer. Get out there. Because if you don't, you're going to get lost in the background. That's just the way it is. And it's not difficult. It really isn't difficult. So
you have to be willing to do things virtually. I mean, I can see the balance, and yes, like I'm grateful that we have Zoom and FaceTime and Facebook Live and all. Like it's a lifesaver right now, and for people to stay connected, even if it's two-dimensionally. I think there'd be a lot more stress and depression and anxiety if we didn't have this right now.
Oh my gosh,
I can't even imagine. So I'm incredibly grateful for that. And I also know, right, like parents are like, oh my gosh, here I am putting my child, in front of the screen. Or if you're working from home and you're in front of the screen, it's just like, so for me, I'm just like, okay, and how do we just balance that? Because like to me, nothing will ever take the place of your feet on the earth, right? And being in nature and going for walks and bike rides and just laying on the grass. And, just face to face with a person 3D, like, right? Like
definitely.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so grateful that for single people, it's a good time to, if you can also, right, adopt a pet, because having another body with you is such a contribution right now.
Oh yeah, especially if you're home alone. Home alone, right?
Yeah. Home alone, exactly. It's
also
time.
It's also an opportunity to find out really who you are, right? That identity of who you are, because that being that best you is knowing your identity, and now you've got a lot of time to spend with yourself. Right, a lot of people ask me, well, who do you travel with? You got somebody going with you. You got a pet. You got this. I said, well, actually, there's 3 of us: me, myself, and I.
I like that.
And man, do we have a great time, right? But my lifestyle is that for me to have a pet would not be fair to that animal, because I'm in the spare of the moment. Boom, I'm gone, and I might not be back at the trailer or back where I'm at for a day, or at least 12 hours. That is not a good thing.
Yeah, you have to think about that, your
pet,
lifestyle.
And so I wouldn't do that. So I enjoy other people's pets,
Yeah.
And I think we need to take that into consideration, and a lot of people don't. Right?
No, absolutely. And you said it, me, myself, and I think when I moved to California, which was 12 and a half years ago, like I had gotten divorced and had a friend group and worked in an office. So I was really, it was a shock to go from being all in 3D with people, 24/7 to coming out here. And I only knew a couple of people, just my brothers and their families. But it was really big part of that was about me, myself, and I, and being comfortable with myself and enjoying my company and getting to a space of like, okay, awesome. Like, I love that. And I also am right down the middle when it comes to being an introvert, extrovert. I'm literally 50-50 when I do the test. And, so then it's like, okay, that's awesome. And I still need people around.
Right.
And I think at this time, I mean, I know people that are introverts that are like, this is awesome. Like, right. They're like, well, I was made for this. But then, I was on a virtual happy hour last night, and this woman was like, I was made for this, and yet I haven't had any time alone because now everybody's home with me. Right. So it just hits up against every button and every comfort zone. But I also think it's such a huge opportunity for us to, like you said, get comfortable and enjoy me, myself, and I, and also really implement and use those self-care tools, because look what you're showing to me. I've always thought this, and I don't have kids, so I tread lightly because I get it. They create, a lot of attention and you demand a lot from you most of the time. But I just look at it and go, okay, if you're taking care of yourself and teaching them, oh, I'm doing the adult timeout, I'll be back in 10 minutes, right? Like if you're showing them that, like you're showing them how to love themselves and take care of themselves and know that self-care, if that actually comes first, everything else has so much more ease. And I feel like that's so much of what on a global scale this is doing, because
Right.
that's been a huge part of the messaging, like self-care, 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 social
Well, yeah,
distancing,
because
self-care,
what do
take
we
care of
do?
yourself.
We put ourselves on the back burner,
Yep.
especially
You can't now. Yeah.
no, especially women in that mother role, whatever. Right?
Hmm.
It's we because we want to give that time, to
Yeah.
others, and if your personality is being the fixer, oh my gosh,
Hmm.
right? You get busy taking care of everybody else, so you don't take care of yourself, and that's not what it's all about. This is why it's called self, right? Self, right? So take the time, because when you really understand what that self is all about and that self-care and who you become, expression of who your true identity is, if you're being someone different in different avenues of your life, and I'll share this with you, and I've shared this different times on the show, and I think this is something that's relevant to every one of us to know who we are. So if we're someone different at work, someone different at play, someone different on vacation, someone different at home, and someone different in building a relationship, right? So we got 5 different personalities, whatever those are. And we probably got more than that, but let's just take 5 of these different personalities where we respond differently in all these different activities. All of a sudden, we get a little invitation in the mail, and it says, "You are invited to a party." Wow, okay. So you go, you knock on the door opens, you walk in, and all of a sudden you see people from every one of these personalities, right?
I love it.
Who are you?
That's brilliant.
Who
Yeah.
are you? All of a sudden it's like, I don't feel so good. I'm going to bow out of this party. I don't know what it is. I know I've been coming down with something. You make up some wild excuse, get the hell out of there, right? So when you become you, it doesn't matter where you are, because you're the same you in every aspect and element of your life. And that's why it's so important to really get to know the me, myself, and I of who you are. And when you can teach that to your children, to be their identity, and to listen to what they're telling you, and help them to mature into their own independence with structure, right? With structure, but listen to them. What are their options? Give them an option. Give them choices. Kids today really need choices.
Yeah. Choices and boundaries.
Yeah.
Right? Choices and boundaries.
When I grew up, and this was a long time ago, when I grew up, it was because I said so.
Oh, yeah. I grew up with that too.
Hey,
My mom was the queen of that one.
because
I said so.
And so you're doing something. You talk about being a little rebel, right? And
Yeah.
and there was 11 of us kids, and I was second oldest. And when Mom would raise her voice, right, you could still push it a little bit farther. But when she said, "When your dad gets home," whoosh,
Right. That
was-
meant something too.
It did. Dad didn't ask questions. You got a crack on the bottom side when he got home. He didn't ask, right? So that was your last chance, because if you pushed it after that, you knew what the consequences were, bar none.
Right.
So, and again, and it's like, but I don't want to do that. Why do I have to do it? Because I said so.
Yeah. And it's so different now, right? Like kids are coming in more sensitive and empathic, and it requires different
It
parenting
really does.
tools.
It
Like
really-
I can see
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And there's still definitely a part of me that is, I think, a little more old fashioned, where I'm like, because sometimes I just see it, I'm like, where's the respect for the parents? Like I get
Right.
that kids require different things too, and we need to be more in the question and really acknowledge them more. But I still feel like parents deserve and should have that respect of being a parent, not necessarily
by all
a
means.
friend. Like you're their parent. Our job is to raise an adult, to raise someone that's going to go out in the world and know about self-care and like perpetuate self-care and being your best self, so that you can contribute the absolute greatest you can contribute to the world. Right? To me, that's the job of a parent. And sometimes it turns out to be more like being their friend or
Yeah, but that, and again,
I want to
it goes
say
down to
caving in, but that's not the right phrase. But I get it, because it gets sometimes
sometimes you need that tough
right,
love.
just kindness. Yep.
And again,
They
it's
need boundaries.
It's listening, right? Because it's a team.
Yeah.
and you spend so much time away from your child because you're off to work, they're off to school, everybody comes home and they're all going their different directions. You try to get something to eat and then you go to bed, right? So and you're
Yeah.
tired, everybody's tired, and you got that little friction going on. All of a sudden now you're there 24/7. Now's your opportunity to really start having a conversation and make it a team effort. It's like they need skills. Kids need skills. They need to know how to cook, how to clean a house, how to do their own laundry.
Like, this
All of
has
these
been the
things.
conversation a lot lately, right? I've been having this with all my friends. Like, I don't know if home economics is still part of school, but if it's not,
It
would it
should
take
be.
it should, right? Like, we were latchkey kids, and maybe that was kind of the error. My mom,
Right.
single mom, and so when I was 11, 12, on, we were latchkey kids. So my mom taught us how to do the laundry, start dinner, clean up. Like, we did all of that stuff.
Right.
I don't even know if I think we might have got a small allowance. But we just knew how to do those things.
Right.
And that's important. And in this, it's funny too, because for a while, especially here in city like San Francisco and big cities, everything's on an app. Like, if you were getting out of college now or in college and you're starting your single life here or something, everything's on an app. I mean, you can get your laundry done, order food, order booze, everything can be ordered on an app and delivered to you. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what is it teaching people? Like, they don't need to know how to do anything.
Right. Right.
And it all went away though, right?
Oh yeah, like
right
boom.
now it's all gone. It's like boom, gone.
Yeah.
And people are like, what? I have to do my laundry. And first
just be
problems.
grateful that you've got the ability to do that
Yes.
at home, and you don't have to try to go out.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, And again, it's getting back into those basics, right? To get
Yep.
back into the basics of what's going on, and to understand that there are ways of doing it, and it's not old-fashioned. It's skills. It's people skills. Another
Life
thing
skills,
too that
people skills.
doesn't get taught in school is how do you write a check? Well, if people write checks anymore, I haven't written a check, and I don't even
Me
remember
neither.
the last check I wrote. But still, change a tire,
Yeah, I don't know how to do that.
check your oil,
Nah.
right?
Maybe.
Yeah,
I can fumble my way through that one.
So these are some skills that should be taught out there again. But
Yeah.
it's learning to communication, learning how to really listen. Because we have kids raising kids. They go to a daycare from little on up. Because the mom has to work, and that's not that work from home. So I think coming out of this is going to be a beautiful world where businesses are going to really, I think, understand that this working from home thing, where stay-at-home moms, with little kids, they can still be productive and still raise a family without having to send them away from, to keep that connection, so the child can say, okay, so this is the time. Okay, so now this is
Right.
what you can do. You have your TV time, you have your
Right.
school time, you have whatever time,
And I'm going to be doing my work
and this
time.
is my
And
work. So this is
yes.
your work and this is my work. So they build
Yes.
those skills, right?
Yeah, I can see that. This is the other conversation that's been occurring. I think a common thread is these conversations of what is the new normal going to look like for people, right? Because so many companies are realizing, people can work from home.
Right.
And
Right.
Their kid runs through the screen on a Zoom, and that's just kind of how it is right now. And there's a lot more just allowance and leeway for all of that. And just in general, even when, if kids go, let's say when they go back to school and they go to school for the day, there's just still we're in each other's homes now. Right. So again,
definitely.
what you were saying about there's these different views, like that's being broken down because we're just thrust into each other's homes going, okay, so this is this person's home life and this is this person's home life. And
Right.
I think it naturally lends itself for people to be more interested and curious about each other's lives and families, which my background in business, I've spent 30 years in corporate and business background, has always been like, I shouldn't say always, because in the beginning I tried to be like the good corporate model, right? And put up those barriers between home life and work life. And I'm like, that just doesn't work, right? I mean, it just creates separation. And then it's like, but people have lives and kids and families and dogs and and parents maybe that get sick and all of these things. So it's like, why are we pretending that what happens at home doesn't impact what happens at work and vice versa? Like, don't pretend. Let's just all acknowledge that everything impacts everything else. and lead from the ground up. Like to me,
Right.
leadership always starts at home. Like how
Yeah,
you
it
are with
does.
yourself, how you
That's
are with your
good.
spouse, your
Yeah.
kids. Yes.
Yeah, leadership
Yeah.
does start at home, and it starts with the self. Where are you
Yep.
leading yourself? That's exactly right. And
Yes.
leading yourself is part of that being better every single day, right? And impacting the world, impacting everyone that you're with on a constant, situation type of thing, especially now. How can you make your home life and your environment better, right? And it has to be attention. Listen to who is there and really start to be observant. We go back right there in the
Yeah.
beginning, that we talked about, right? Being aware of how people are responding to you and how you're responding to them. Is it creating a friction, putting you down that rabbit hole as you spoke? Or is it building a communication where it's going to build everybody up as this big team and come out of it in such a different perspective and respect? Again, we talk about that respect of one another. It's
Right.
honoring who you are for who you are. But if people don't know who you are because you're trying to be somebody different all the time, how can you expect that respect? Right? How can you
Yeah.
get that? Because they don't know. Well, I don't know who you are. How can I respect you?
Right.
You're over here. You're over there. Right? Right?
Like be yourself. Well, it's interesting because what do I want to say about that? There's so many. There was like 5 things that popped up when you said like, wait, there's all this stuff. Um, to me, gratitude is very important, but not comparing yourself, right? Because there's still the
Yes.
whole Facebook phenomenon going on where I was on Facebook a lot and social media because it's right now it's how we're connecting even more. So we're relying on it more than ever. And yet there are times where I'm like really backing off because, everyone's like, we're baking and we're puzzling and we're doing it right. And so if that's not your family, like that's not your family. If that's
Right.
not you, as a single person and this other single, like I really ask people, like, do your best to not compare to what you're seeing and hearing from everyone else as you're right going into I'm going to be my best self and give myself the kindness of when I'm not in those best moments. And the same thing for those in my, whether it's family or you
Right.
have roommates or a
Right.
partner, it's like, okay, not their best moment. Everyone's, doing the best they can in any given moment with all of the experiences and the things that are going on. So we need to have a lot of just space and allowance and kindness. And I just don't compare, like, don't
Don't
compare
compare.
yourself
That that's
with
that's
anyone
that is a
else.
key. Yep. Because this
And
is you. This is your experience.
your family, your dynamic, and every dynamic is different, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
every couple is different, every family is different. And so if you're going, oh, I want to be that family over there that's doing game night and puzzles and it just doesn't fit your family, it's not going to work and everyone's going to get frustrated. So
ask
instead of,
ask your kids,
yeah,
ask your spouse,
yeah,
make everybody. And this is another one a gal that was on the other day. He said, take your little sticky notes, right? Everybody has a
mm-hmm,
pad of sticky notes, and each note is, what is it that you can bring to the group? What is it you want to do? How can we
yep,
work together here? Write it down, right? And everybody has their sticky notes, right? And then we bring them all together and everybody reads. It's like, oh, hey, I had that one too, right? So you can see,
cool.
what everybody's about, and then how you can start to incorporate and fix it, as again, that team to work together as that one unit.
Yep,
So, yeah.
yep. You got to bring in ideas from everybody
Yeah.
and not make, it's just like a brainstorming session. Like just throw out a bunch
It
of
is.
ideas and
It's
see
like
what's going to work
a
for
whole
you.
mastermind, a whole
It
mastermind
is.
group with you, and that's training as well.
Yeah.
Danna, we could talk on this subject like forever, but I want to ask you about
Yeah.
your book.
Yeah, I love talking about my book. I love all these
Yeah.
topics, by the way,
Okay,
Beverly.
so
Thank you. They're all so relevant right now.
They are, and we all have great ideas and stuff. And again, it goes back into that unit. So share your book with our audience and how that can incorporate in their life today, and how it can help
Yeah.
them to become that better.
I mean, it's this is the dog-eared version with lots of notes, but feels so good. So the title of the book is The Indisputable Gift of Men, which seems to
Ooh.
be, I know, let's just let people are like,
Say
you
that
need to
again,
just let
like
it land.
really slow, so it can sink in.
The Indisputable Gift of Men.
Indisputable gift of men. So there's several these words. Okay, indisputable means no conflict. right? And then we say the word men. Now that can have dual meaning, right?
Yeah,
Right?
especially
Okay.
in these times. I
It
know.
can be masculine, feminine, right? So it can be, what body parts do you have, right? Or
Yeah.
it can be incorporated into mankind, just meaning every human on the planet is incorporated in that, of men, meaning
Mm-hmm.
everybody that is in the human element, bring it in. So,
Yeah.
which is it in your book, or is it a piece of both?
Well, I think ultimately it's a piece of both, but and that said, as a heterosexual woman, right, I did write it from the perspective of male female, that men really can be a gift in our lives. And so for me, and you read this in the beginning, and so it's nonfiction, and every chapter is a different story, and they're all threaded together, but they are individual stories from my life, particularly my some of my romantic encounters. And for me, like, I just learned so much. Like, my romantic encounters, marriage, living with someone, date, like, all of that have been the most dynamic experiences of my life. They really have been my my bigger transformation points. And I just had a different perspective. Like, I maybe am a little more old fashioned, but I always looked at it like, okay, so here's this person. And I'm not saying I did this every second of every day, because I didn't, because I did the, emasculating and criticizing, and like, I was in all that too. But more often I was coming from this space of like, oh my God, like, they're so cool. Like, they have all these cool things, and look what I got from this, and look what they got, and look look what's possible for us to create together.
Right.
And during this time, I just kept hearing a lot of women. I'm not gonna say all, because it's just a lot of different women. Kitty's playing with her paper. Sorry about that. Can't stop that right now. She has a big bowl of colored paper that she likes to play in. I heard a lot of women male bashing, and you still hear that.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
do.
right now, all you're hearing about is Corona, and there was this time and space where you just heard so much male bashing, and without diminishing anything that's occurred with the Me Too movement or any of that, it's like, we can't put them all in a bucket together. Like, it's just like saying all women are the same, all men are not the same. Yes, they're certainly in both spaces, bad seeds or bad apples, or people have had
Right.
bad experiences, and now they're bitter and angry and all that stuff. So for me, it was just, I would just get irritated and frustrated with, okay, what's this male bashing going on? That's not empowerment to me. To me, an empowered woman can be a leader, a personal leader. Like, she really takes it onto herself to lead herself in a way where she knows me, myself, and I, and she knows her self-care, and she knows the vitality of that, and she can have allowance for other people, and she can make choices, and she knows that her choices create more awareness for her, and that she can keep learning and growing. And you can do that without pointing a finger at the other sex, and not make them the opposite sex, not make them the enemy. They really can be an ally and go, okay, so I've learned something, and okay, so this person, he's not interested in creating a partnership with me the way that I need to create partnership. So instead of making that person wrong, it's like, okay, thank you for that information.
Thank you for letting me
right?
know, so I didn't
Yeah,
build
right.
this for
So,
years. And then you say, see, and I was like, wait a minute, I just wasted all
Right.
this time. So,
and that's one, right? That's just
Yeah.
one example. So it really is an empowerment. To me, this book is about female empowerment in a way where you can embrace men and go, oh, like, they're awesome. Like, look at those cool things that they be and do and are, right? And really enjoy that. So the book leads you through that. And at the end of each chapter, there are, I call it a deeper invitation, go deeper. And it could be a journal, a question, an exercise, a tool.
oh, great.
So that's at the end of every chapter. And it's a really deep dive. Like, when people, I've read it many times, but it's weird too. When I got the first hard copy, my first, physical, I just sat and read it.
Isn't that like
cover to cover? It's
like
amazing.
You hold your book and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, it's like
It's
holding
like
a baby.
the Yeah, no, seriously, just to give
Yeah, it
birth to
is.
it, and the magic that it is and wants to be in the world. But I've gotten just such great feedback.
Right.
Um, and the age range, a little fuzzy, the age range I've had, young 20s all the way. I've had a woman who was like 80 by the book, so there's been a really wide range, because you're never too young or too old to learn how to be a leader for yourself, and to
Exactly.
let go.
To
So
let
right,
go.
by reading this, you're letting go of heartbreak, you're letting go of resentment and bitterness, and you're learning and embracing more of the gift. And with that is the gratitude that men can be in our lives, and the gratitude that you can be in any space. Like, that is the biggest, most powerful force for change that we have,
Yeah.
is was right being in that space of gratitude. So
Exactly.
that's where it leads you. And it's been really interesting because men are really enjoying it. So
Oh, well, that's great.
I
That's
wasn't
great. Yeah.
right. Like, I wasn't expecting, like I said, I was writing it from my voice for other women, but men are
Right.
really, they hear the title, and, I get, before we weren't 6 feet apart, I would get like the fist bumps, and men coming up to me and like thanking me when they heard the title, and we would talk about it. Just, they were just, this part was a little heartbreaking. Some of these conversations are like, I thought you all hated us. Like, I really, like, there's been a lot of
Right.
that, where men were like, we really, like, oh, and all hate us. Oh, I thought, we were just in the doghouse from now on. Like, there's been some really heartbreaking comments coming from men, and about what's been going on too. And there's so many good guys out there.
Well,
So
there is, and like you say,
yeah,
putting people in an arena like all in the same bucket isn't really
yeah,
the
it's
best
not
thing to
okay.
do, whether it's women or men. And
Yeah.
again too, when well, let's look at this masculine feminine, right? Because we are a combination of
Hmm.
masculinity and femininity, right? And when we can understand the difference, your femininity is where your power lies. That's the female force, right? Is the power. Where men in that masculinity is the strength. They're the backbone. So when you can bring those two together, so when men understand that it's the woman who has the power to go because she is the one who births and everything else, right?
Create.
But
Yeah.
the masculine is necessary to have that foundation for that woman to build on and soar and go together as a unit, because that's what we are here. Half of us are, half the feminine and half the female. So when you can know yourself and balance your feminine masculine side and get that deeper understanding of what that is, then you have a different admiration and respect out there for that male gender and for that female gender. And if men can do the same thing, get in touch with their female, side, and move that flippin' ego out of the way, and that goes for both sexes,
And yes, thank you for saying
right?
that. It
For
does
both
very much
sexes,
go for both sexes.
right? Because again, I think we start to misunderstand what that strength is as being a power, and it's not. And it's, why do we have to take from others to kind of force our way to doing, right? Because it's not about that.
Hmm.
It's about working together in that force of strength and power, and really know the difference and how to incorporate them together. Because when you can balance that, the world changes inside and
Yes.
out here,
Yes.
right? And so what I'm gathering from what you're sharing about your book, and having that comment coming from both sexes, it's like, wow, we really aren't the bad guys. They're not. Men have a whole different way of processing this. A man's brain
Yes.
is a
That's so important to know how
yeah,
different, right?
yeah.
And not wrong. Again, it's this whole
No, it's
focus on,
who
it's
they
not
are.
wrong. It's different. It's just different. And
There's
if you're looking at a man and you're going, oh, well, I wouldn't have done it that way, or my best friend so and so would have responded faster or sent me a card or something, like, you're doing that thing where you're
right,
making them wrong for being who they are and who they
right.
be, versus being a
Exactly.
woman,
That's
which they're not.
yes, exactly. And so, again, it's a development of all of these things, nurturing from both sides. But when a
Yeah.
man's brain is compartmentalized, you can look at it as you got this big box of, like you go out in your garage and you see your toolboxes, and every one of them has a little different screw in it, right? And nuts and bolts and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. This is a man's brain. When one of them compartments are open, they can only deal with what's in that drawer.
Single focus for the most
then
part.
they
Yeah.
shut it. That's why they can forget about things like that fast, right? So when they shut it, they have to open up another one. Now here's a woman's brain. Okay, she's got all these compartments. They're all open at the same
Diffuse
time.
awareness. Yeah, just that awareness of everything. And not to say, again, like I was saying earlier, you're still impacted by the things that go on in your life. So even though the man is like, okay, I'm at work now, and he can be that single focus, if something's going on at home, it's still on the fringe, it's still on the edges for him. And I think that's why I always talk about that personal leadership starts at home, because if you can create a home life that is nurturing and kind and honoring and the space of gratitude, then like everything is possible.
Well,
there.
I'm
Every
glad you
type
said
of thriving,
because it does go back to gratitude, and really look. I mean, this is a time now because time has virtually almost like stopped. We're not in that constant movement, busy, right? It's like, well, we have time to really look at things, so look around in your life. What do you have that you can be grateful for?
Yeah.
Right. And that's so important. And I personally, I think the universe says, hey, you know what? You guys have gotten so far off track here, right? Everybody's derailed. It's like, let's see what we can do on a global status. Pow! Get yourself back on track, whatever that track may be. And you're going to go through tunnels, but know that light at the end of the tunnel doesn't have to be a train. Right?
No, it doesn't. So I want to show this to everyone. It's 2 pages, but they're separate. You don't need to see what it is, but it's a focus wheel. I learned this from I have so many modalities: Access Consciousness, Abraham Hicks, Joe Dispenza, a lot of neuroscience, law of attraction, quantum physics, positive psychology. But the focus wheel for me is such a fun visceral way of doing gratitude. I mean, I can do, gratitude Kickstarters, and just like you're saying, just what are you grateful for? But to write it down, so I do this big circle in the page, and then you do these spokes out so there's like 12 spokes or however many you want to do. And then in the middle, it's like, you can do, when we're talking about the gift of men here, so you can do this for anything. But this is what I love about my person, right? And then just all these different things that you love about him, and don't judge it. Like, what's the first thing that pops into your mind, right? It can be the smallest to the big. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It's just you're getting into the space of like, I love this and I love that and I love that, and it raises your vibration and expands your energy out, and that's the place of possibilities. So,
and it's learning to love that person for exactly who they are. And again, it goes back into respecting and honor that person. They have choices and you have choices, and just because their choice doesn't match up with yours, like you said, it doesn't make it wrong. No right, no wrong. Is
just what else
the
is
other
possible,
person is different than your is, and you have to honor that. And sometimes I think that's probably one of the hardest things for people to learn is, how do I honor that other person where they're not making the right choices? Whose right choice is that?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so that's your way of doing it. I have to honor that. Not mine, but okay, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's your kids, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a business partner. And again, that's part of that communication. And oh my gosh. Danna, we're getting here up to the top of the hour.
I know.
And it
went by so fast.
Where did the time go? This conversation has been so beautiful. And I hope you guys out there listening have got something out. Please comment below. Let us know how that impacted you.
Yeah.
And if you want Danna's book, again, Danna, say the name of the book and how they can find that.
So it's The Indisputable Gift of Men. It's online. I mean, right now, everything, it's all online. So Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. I think there's some other ones, but those are the 2 big ones.
So just about wherever you can buy a book, you can find it.
Yeah, it's online. And of course, you can just have the Kindle and be reading it right away.
There you
go.
Then,
and I'm doing some online book clubs for private groups. I'm doing private author talks and private book clubs for
how can they get a hold of you? Do you have a website that they can get a hold of you?
I do. So my website is dannalewis.com. So www.dannalewis.com. Oh, and they can get the first chapter for free. So if you go to the website, you can. Almost forgot. So if you go to the website, you can download chapter 1, and then there's other information, and so everything just is,
And
it's right there.
we'll put
Yeah.
that up above
Yeah.
the
Thank you.
video
Yeah.
here so that they
Yeah.
can, so they didn't have to hurry up and write it down, whatever. So we'll
Yeah.
put that up there, how they
Yeah.
can get a hold of your book and how they can get to your website and whatever. And know if you need or would like to know what's going on and have a conversation with Danna, just reach out.
Yeah.
You can reach out here. You can private message her. You can private message me. Whatever it is that you want that's going to help you become that better you. That's what this whole show focus is all about. Because each one of us has something that someone else can utilize and incorporate to become that better them. And so, Danna, it's been a pleasure. You coming into my life and being on the show today has definitely made me a better me. And I am grateful for that. And I look forward to building a strong, growing relationship here in friendship as it goes, as we continue. And we'll have to get you back on the show again.
It was so fun, Beverly. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be on here, to get up and have my coffee with you guys and have this conversation. What an amazing way to start the day. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
It is uplifting.
Yeah, thank
right?
you.
It gives you something different to do and something new to do. And again, the whole purpose of the show is to help you, like I said, to be that better you.
Be the better you. Yeah.
What we're going to do is we're going to say go out there and be that best you that you can be. Because Danna and I are going to do what? We're going to be the best we that we can be. So thank you all again for joining us on the show. And thank you again, Danna. And we will get you back. We will get you back.
I love it.
And for now, you go out there. Have a great day. We'll see you all on the next show. And just be safe. Well, I don't know what happened here, but our end show disappeared. But
no.
I know. It's like, oh, it doesn't want to play today. So that's okay. So we'll just...
Technology is funny right now.
Oh my gosh, I have had some really interesting technology, like, whoops, but that's okay.
Yep.
So everyone, have that great day, and we're just going to sign off.
Bye.
Bye.